Hey, what's going on, guys? Chris NY Sports here, coming at you with another predictions video for NHL. This is going to be my 2018-2019 Pacific Division standings. This is the last division I have to get to, and we're going to start right away. We're going to start off right now with number 8 in the Pacific, the Vancouver Canucks. I don't think this needs much explanation. They have a lot of young kids. This team is building for the future. You have Sven Berchi, Brock Besser, Reed Boucher, Brendan Gouge, Marcus Granlund, Bo Horvat, Jake Virtanen. All these kids are just getting experience under their belt now, and especially with the Sedins gone, they did bring in a couple of veterans to help. They still have Louis Eriksson. They signed Jay Beagle. Anton Roussel, Tim Schaller from Boston, Brandon Sutter. They've had them for a couple of years. Their defense, really behind Christopher Tanev, it's not looking that strong. And they have Michael Del Zotto, so their team's going to be terrible defensively. And in that, Jacob Markstrom and Anders Nielsen. It doesn't need much explanation on why this team's going to finish last. They had 73 points last year. I'll give them 75 this year. I'll give them one extra win, but it's just not their time right now. They have a lot of young kids that are developing and just getting more and more experience under their belt. So Canucks are in last in the Pacific with 75 points. And believe it or not, I have the Anaheim Ducks finishing in 7th place in the division. This is probably going to be dead wrong, but I feel like what happened with the Rangers this past season, where they thought that, they have an aging core, but they could still contend, and then they just ended up blowing it up because, they weren't where they thought they would. I think this is going to happen with the Anaheim Ducks. They have an aging core. I don't know if Ryan Kessler is going to be able to play the whole season. You just have a lot of veteran guys, and the body's going to start to break down. I mean, they do still have guys like Rickard Rakell, Jakob Silfverberg, who I think they're still going to light up the lamp. But I just think overall as a group, Getzlaf, Perry, Kessler, they have a lot of guys that have a lot of mileage on them, and I think they're going to start to break down, and their division, they have a lot of teams they have a lot of solid teams, and although I only have 3 playoff teams coming out of this division, their whole their division is strong, and their conference is really strong. And again, with this new day and age, with speed being one of the top priorities, I think this team's going to fall behind a little bit. And I don't know. This is going to be dead wrong because I'm just looking at their roster right now, and I'm thinking there's no way this team finishes in 7th, but we're going to stick with it. John Gibson, who signed a long-term contract in net, he's a very good goalie. He just has to stay healthy. He has to stay healthy. Cam Fowler leads a good defense, but this is one of those predictions that it's like a 1 in 100 chance that it happens, and if it does, I look like an absolute genius. But when it doesn't happen, I look dumb. This is that pick. So yeah, Anaheim in 7th. They had 101 points last year. That was second best in their division. They ended up getting swept by the San Jose Sharks in the first round. I gave the Canucks 75 points. I'll give this team 78, which is a huge drop off from last year. I just think it's going to be a really long year with Getzlaf and Perry. I feel like they're going to be kind of getting injured, and that's going to bring up a bigger responsibility to their younger depth players, and they're just not going to fill the shoes. And I should just stop talking because this is going to be dead wrong. This is going to be terrible. But anyway, we're going to stick with it. Anaheim Ducks dropped from 101 points to 78 points this year. That's 7th best in the Pacific Division. It's going to be dead wrong, but we're sticking with it. And probably yet another terrible prediction, but I have the Calgary Flames down in 6th in the Pacific Division, and they had 84 points last season. I'm going to get the points right out of the way here. I'm going to give them a solid 80, so I'm going to give them a 4-point drop-off. 80 points in 6th spot in their division. And the reason why is goaltending. You have Mike Smith as your starter, and they don't have a backup right now, and they're going to need one, because if Smith goes down like he did last season, you need somebody that's going to be able to consistently give you a chance to win and win hockey games and get you a couple points at the end of the night, which they did not have last season. Now, this team made was a part of one of the biggest trades in the offseason. Dougie Hamilton and a couple other pieces were shipped off to Carolina for Noah Hannafin. And if you guys watch my Metropolitan Division prediction, I said that Noah Hannafin, I think the Flames won this deal because they got Noah Hannafin. However, this is his first year with a new team. I don't really believe in the new conference, and you have to learn the conference, but I'm just going to say that for Noah Hannafin, so I don't know if he's going to have that great of a season. But they also signed James Neal from the Vegas Golden Knights in the offseason. But of course, you have Johnny Hockey, Sean Monahan, which I think by the end of this year, those two are going to be lighting up the lamp, and they're going to be one of the best pairings in the league for quite some time. But I just feel like, again, it comes down to the goaltending, and Mike Smith is a decent starter. I think he'd be a better, if you had him at backup, maybe like a fringe starter, but I don't think you can rely on him to play 55, 60, possibly even 65 games in the regular season. And if you do that and you make the playoffs, I don't think he's going to be a very good player in the playoffs, for lack of a better term, because he's going to be worn down, because he's an older guy. And you really can't blame him for that. It's just he's a human being, and that's what happens. Their defense, like I said, I mentioned Noah Hannafin. They have Travis Hamonic, who he is not shaping out to be what they traded for from the Islanders. They gave up a lot for him. I think a first-round pick was a part of that trade, too. Mark Giordano, the captain, again, he's not getting any younger. TJ Brody, who I really like. Michael Stone, kind of a younger guy, but I think he's had some growing pains as well on the defense. And of course, going back to the forward position, you have Matthew Tkachuk, who he could, he needs to kind of mature a little bit. He has great talent. He's going to be a very good player in this league, but he's just, talking about growing pains. He could be a borderline in terms of, he could be kind of like a Brad Marchand in a way, maybe not to his level of licking and biting players, but he could get under your skin and maybe most likely cross that line and hurt his team by giving them shorthanded. And I don't think they had a very good penalty kill last season either. I could be wrong about that, and I probably am. But it just comes down to the goaltending. And so the goaltending is going to be the reason why I have the Flames 6th in the Pacific, 4 fewer points than they had last year, which is 80 points at the end of the season. And let's go to 5th. And all the way up in 5th are the Arizona Coyotes, after coming off of a 70-point season, which really, if you look at it, isn't that bad, because they started off terrible their first couple of months, and they started to really heat up, and you really got a small glimpse of what they can do. And I think that this team's going to bring that second half Coyotes into this season. So like I said, they had 70 points last season. I have them up in 5th, still missing the playoffs, but they are making bigger and better strides. We'll start with the forwards. I was going to start with goalies, but we'll start with the forwards. They traded for Alex Galchenyuk. I think he's going to fit in. I think he's going to feel a lot less pressure, and that will help him. And he's kind of an older guy in a very young team. They signed Michael Grabner, who's a very great depth forward. And the young guys that they have are Dylan Strome. I think it's his time now. He's got to prove himself to this team. Brendan Perolini, Clayton Keller, I think Clayton Keller is a great player. I really like to watch him play, and I want to watch more of him play this year because I think he kind of had a bit of a slow year last year, but I think he's gonna come back. Christian Dvorak. They got Vinny Hinostroza from Chicago. This young forward depth, I think they're going to do very well this year. I think this is an up-and-coming team that many people think, it's not their year yet, and I still do think that, but I think that they're going to get a lot more points and be in playoff contention until, they'll be in playoff contention past the trade deadline. That's how I feel about them, and possibly even have a spot and just lose it. On defense, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who I think people say he's overrated and underrated at the same time. I think he's underrated because I think if the average hockey fan just looks at stats, and especially that plus-minus, that stat isn't a very good test and litmus test to see what type of player you're dealing with. And this guy, yes, he's very offensive and he's gotten better defensively. He still has to get better defensively, but with the team he's been on, he's the number one defenseman, so he's going to be on 25-plus minutes a night. So he's going to be on for a lot of goals against. Nicholas Hjalmarsson, who's definitely taken steps back, and he's not in his prime like he was in Chicago, but he could still bring great leadership to the team. Jason Demers, who I think he could be a solid bottom four defenseman. Alex Goligoski, again another older guy, but with a team with this amount of young players, I think you do need your veteran players, and they have a lot of veteran blue liners that could help even Oliver Ekman-Larsson defensively and help the forwards and complement them even more. And net, Yabanti Ranta, who started off bad last year. He had a down year. He was injured, and when he was playing, it didn't play that great. I think he's going to have a very good year, bounce back year. And if he does get hurt again or doesn't play that great, you have Darcy Kemper as a backup, who I think he could hold his own as well from his time in Minnesota. So, like I said, this team had 70 points last season. We're going to give them 85 points. So a 15-point increase from last year. They were still 12 points back from Minnesota. So actually maybe they wouldn't be in contention at the trade deadline or have a spot and lose it. But I still think this team is going to be very close. Maybe in like January or February they'll be contending, and maybe by that trade deadline they'll just start to fall out. But this team, a couple of years from now, they will definitely be in the playoffs. And hopefully they could get some recognition. There's been a lot of talk of their attendance rate, and because their arena is empty, and the days of them making the playoffs in like 2010, 2009, 2011, those days have been long gone for quite some time. But I think you're going to start to get kind of a second wave of that soon, very soon. And you're going to start to see that with these young kids developing this year. You already saw it, like I said, the second half of last year, and I think they're going to have a very hot start this season and then cool off. But a very exciting team to watch. But they are in fifth for my predictions with 85 points in the Pacific. And the the Edmonton Oilers, I have in fourth in the Pacific Division, and that's exactly why. Connor McDavid, the best player in the world right now. Well, actually, in my opinion, he's still not better than Crosby, but that's for another video. But he will be the best player in the league and in the world. But they had 78 points last year, a tremendous drop-off, and just an ugly season last year compared to what they had a couple of years ago, as they could have gone in the West Conference Finals. But when you look at this team, it's Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Cam Talbot, and then just a bunch of other pieces that are just wearing sweaters and skating. At first, I had this team making the playoffs, and if you guys didn't see my last prediction of the Central Division, I had both wild cards coming out of there. So Edmonton's missing the playoffs in fourth. I had them going back up to like second or even winning the division. But after looking at their roster, they have no wingers that can score. You have McDavid and Draisaitl, which right now Draisaitl's only putting up numbers when he's on the wing with McDavid. And when he's centering his second line, he's not doing that well. I mean, I'm sorry, I just hit my mic. Look at these wingers: Pontus Aberg, Drake Kajula, Zach Cassian, Kara. I don't know how to say his first name. Milan Lucic, Jesse Poliviari, Ty Ratty, Tobias Reeder. I mean, these guys, they're solid players. Don't get me wrong. I wish that I had their talent. But when you don't put them with McDavid, they look average or subpar. Milan Lucic, who signed a huge contract with Edmonton, and once they signed him, I knew towards the tail end they would regret it. Maybe get 1 or 2 years out of him. Right now, it's not even looking like they got 2 years. His first year, he played well because he was with McDavid, and now it just seems not that very well. Ryan Strome, the trade with the Islanders for Jordan Eberle, they came up on the short end of that. He has not been proving his worth because he would add that center depth. Because if you look at their roster, their centers are very good. You have McDavid, and then you have Draisaitl, Ryan Nugent and Hopkins, and you have Ryan Strome. You would think that's a solid depth at center, but when you call up Draisaitl to play the wing with McDavid to produce more, now you're asking, or you even do that with Hopkins. You have Hopkins on the wing. Now you're asking Strome to play second or third line minutes. It's just not that good. And McDavid, although he's an awesome player, probably have another 100-point season, if not like a 95-point season, he needs help. And Draisaitl needs to develop, and it needs to be McDavid and Draisaitl, not just McDavid. And Draisaitl needs to get out of McDavid's shadow. Nucci and Hopkins has to get out of McDavid's shadow. Milan Lucic has to get out of his shadow. I mean, you could get points from Aberg and all the guys I read before, but they have to do it without McDavid. Now on to the defensive side. Darnell Nurse, I really like him a lot, but he's kind of coming up slow offensively. They thought he would be producing more. Andre Sekera, he hurt his ankle, I think it was, so he's out for a long time. Chris Russell, the famous go-ahead goal for the Maple Leafs last season, shooting in his own net. I think he has good upside, but he just hasn't been able to prove it. Oscar Klefbom, I'm really high on. I really like Klefbom. Matt Benning hasn't been able to do much. And then in net, Cam Talbot and Al Montoya. And if you guys don't know, well, you guys don't because I didn't have this channel then. When Talbot was on the Rangers, I loved Cam Talbot. Absolutely loved him, and I still do to this day. But he had an off year last year, not getting any younger. He has to bounce back. I think he will, but he still won't be that Ghostbuster Cam Talbot that we saw a couple of years ago. So they had 78 points last year. I'll give him more points. I think McDavid will give him a lot of points and be in playoff contention. I'm going to give him an even 90 points. But that's still 7 off of the playoffs. But I think, last couple of weeks, they'll still be in contention and challenging the Wild for that second wild card spot. But they're just going to come up short. But a better year than last year. 12 more points. So let's now go into third in the Pacific Division. The first team making the playoffs out of the Pacific are the Vegas Golden Knights last season. 109 points. Best team in the Western Conference. They represented the Western Conference in the Stanley Cup Final. That's what I meant by the best team. They were like second best in the standings, or third best actually. But they came up a little bit short to the Capitals in the Stanley Cup. And I think it would be ridiculous to think that they're going to repeat that. They brought in Paul Stastny. They signed him, but they let a lot of guys go. James Neal was one of the biggest ones. But William Karlsson had 42 goals. I think he's going to have a drop-off. I'll give him like 25. Same thing with Jonathan Marchessault. So I think, like I said, I think it would be ridiculous to think this team will make the playoffs. They still are a very good team, but it's ridiculous to think that they're going to do what they did last year. But I look at this team, and I really do like them. I like this team to make the playoffs. At first, I didn't think they were going to make the playoffs this year. I thought everything would go wrong. But I'm looking at this team, and there's a reason why they did what they did last year. Because they're a really good team. And so I'm having them third. They're forward. They have a lot of great depth. They have so many players. And George McPhee, they did a great job of getting draft picks and getting players. And obviously getting the very best out of their players. I really like Alex Tuck. He played a huge role in the playoffs, and they have a lot of great depth guys. Eric Howla, Cody Eakin, Oscar Lindbergh, Ryan Carpenter, who came out of nowhere too, William Carrier, Pierre-Edouard Bellemare. All these guys, Tomas Nosek too, also came out of nowhere. I really like him. He was a rookie last season. And Ryan Reeves, who played very well, and he's a very good guy to have in the locker room to kind of jolt the team. Riley Smith, Tomas Tatar, it's going to be interesting to see what Tomar does as his first full year with the Vegas Golden Knights. I thought that was one of the bad trades that they did last season. They gave a first, a second, and a third to Detroit for Tomas Tatar. He's going to play very well this season. Defense, Derek England, who I didn't think would be a number one defenseman, but I think he is their number one defenseman. Colin Miller, John Merrill, Braden McNabb, Nate Schmidt, who I really, really like. Shea Theodore. You could keep going. And of course, the defense looks better when you have Marc-Andre Fleury behind you. And that's a whole other story, because they have Oscar Dansk, Maxim Lagacé, and Malcolm Subban, which they all had to use last year, and they all played absolutely outstanding. They had 109 points the last year. I'm going to drop them off 100. We'll do even 100 points. I was going to give them 102, but we're going to drop them off to an even 100 points. Still a very great year for your second year in the NHL. But main reason, I think they're not going to get as many bounces their way this year. I think they're going to have maybe some injuries and some players not playing, starting off slow and things like that. Now people are going to be coming after them because they're not sneaking up on anybody anymore like they did last year. Everybody's going to be gunning for them, especially in the Western Conference. You have to beat them because they represented the West in the Cup Finals last season. So Vegas Golden Knights, 100 points, third place in the Pacific Division. Coming off of a 98-point season, the Los Angeles Kings, I have finishing second in the Pacific Division this season. They got swept by Vegas in the first round, team we were just talking about. However, they signed Ila Kovalchuk. Sorry, I cannot pronounce his first name. In the offseason from the KHL, so he's making his return back from the NHL. After missing, I think the last year he played. No, it wasn't 2012 when they lost to the Kings. I think it was 2013. But he's missed at least 3 seasons, and he's coming back. Yes, he's an older player, and this team has an older core. But I just think that this team is always really good, and I don't think this year's going to be any different. And I think leading the way is Anze Kopitar. He's their captain. He had an absolute amazing season last year. He elevated Dustin Brown's game as well. I actually have a Dustin Brown jersey. But they have a very good balance of first liners, top 6, and bottom 6. Kovalchuk, I think, falls in the top 6 category, bottom 6. Guys like Trevor Lewis, Adrian Kempe, who I think he could still play a lot better than he's shown. Same thing with Alex Lafayette. Kyle Clifford, a bottom 6, but a guy that you absolutely love to have in your locker room. He's a great leader and just a great guy to have on your team. Jeff Carter, a solid second-line center. That's I think, a very underrated center 1-2 punch because of their age, and they're getting up there in Anze Kopitar and Jeff Carter. Let's see what I mean. Tyler Toffoli, I have him doing very well this season. I forgot how many goals he had last year, but I could see him easily getting 30, 35 goals. Their defense, Drew Doughty, They just signed him long-term, locked him up, I think 8 years. I know it was $11 million. Not sure about the term, though. I think it's 8 years. You have Alec Martinez, who, to this day, I still mumble some words after I hear or say his name because he ended the Rangers season in 2014, but he's a very solid defenseman that could go well with Drew Doughty on the left side. Jake Muzzin, Derek Forbort, Paul Ledoux, Dion Phaneuf. I think Phaneuf, he has to go. I think his time in the NHL is done. And in net, you have Jonathan Quick, who is Drake Bell. But one of the most flexible goaltenders in the league. Actually, not one of the most flexible goaltender in the league. You have to shoot high on this guy because anything that's low and on the ice, he's getting. Somehow, some way, he doesn't have to see it. He doesn't have to see you shooting. He's just going to find a way to get it. He'll do splits, he'll dive, he'll jump, he'll get a glove on it, get a helmet, get a stick. Doesn't matter. Get a pad. He's going to save anything that you shoot low at him, and he had a much better season last year. Was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago that he was injured and missed and played like in 8 games? I think that was the 2015-16 season because that's when they missed the playoffs. But I think he's going to continue playing well this year again. I like him because he's an American-born player, so I kind of like him. Not saying I don't like Canadians any less, but I probably shouldn't say that. But you have Kopitar, Carter, Brown, Doughty, Quick. These guys have had 2 cups next to them, all together on the same team. They know how to win. You don't just forget on how to win this team. They have great leadership. They have young kids that have to develop, but with great leadership and great veterans, that will make that process a lot easier and faster. They had 98 points last season. I'm going to boost them up to 103 this year. 103 points, 5 more points they had last year for the Kings, and that is second best in the Pacific. And on to number 1. The San Jose Sharks are number 1 in the Pacific this year. I literally could, whatever I just said for the Kings, I could say the same thing for the Sharks and just substitute some names. They had 100 points last season. That was 3rd in their division. Swept the Ducks, lost to Vegas in 6 last year. I mean, this team, you look at their core: Joe Pavelski, Logan Couture, Joe Thornton, Tomas Hertl, and now Evander Kane and Brett Burns as well. But Evander Kane, I want to get to him. When they first traded for Evander Kane, I thought that it was not going to be a good fit because Kane off the ice isn't the greatest in Buffalo. But he came in and played amazing. And now having him on the team for a full year is going to be great for San Jose. But the depth on this team, all those names I mentioned in Hertl, Couture, Pavelski, those guys are top 5 or top 6. But they have such great depth players. Melker Karlsson, Jonas Donskoy, Timo Meier, Kevin Labanc. Where is Chris Tierney? I'm not sure, but I don't know if he's on the team anymore. If he is, he's one of my favorite players as well. Chris Tierney. He's kind of like a Casey Cizikas to me, but I don't know why he's not here. Anyway, they have such good depth players. Again, they know how to win. They made the playoffs a lot. They haven't won the cup yet, but they've been to the cup a couple years ago, and they just know how to win. This team, when you have veteran players that have been there before, they know what it takes to get there. They want it, especially a team like this that they haven't won it before. When you look at their defense, yeah, it's older, but it's very solid to me, led by Brett Burns, one of my favorite players in the entire league. Justin Braun, Dylan DeMello, those are on the right side. Left side, you have Mark-Edward Vlasic, Brendan Dillon, Jakob Ryan. All these guys are very good players, and especially Vlasic and Burns and Braun and Dillon kind of falls off the bottom 2 defensive pairing, but the leadership skills on this team, and that goes down to the goalies in Martin Jones, who I think is very underrated. Aaron Dell as a backup, who again is very underrated. Aaron Dell is a very good goaltender if Jones goes down to an injury, or if you need him, give him rest, or if he's just playing very poorly. You have options in net, and this team knows how to put the puck in the back of the net. This team's got great chemistry. They've been together for a long time, and yeah, they had 100 points last year. We're going to give them 107 this season. That is good for the best in the Pacific. So, guys, I'm going to have to rewatch some of my videos because I forgot the point total, so I'm going to write that stuff down. And coming up very soon, I'm going to be having round 1 of the playoffs. It's going to be kind of a longer video. I'm going to be doing round by round for the playoffs. I think I might do it another way. I'll think about how to do it. Maybe make it a little shorter. Maybe I'll do like the East first round and the West first round. But stay tuned for the playoffs. I hate those. I don't understand those guys that make predictions of the standings but don't do the playoffs as well. Like, what's the point of that? But that's gonna be starting soon. I'm gonna get into the awards, predictions, and bold predictions I have. Make like 5 or 10. But you guys know the drill. I've said this before. Let me know your predictions in the comments. Leave a like, leave a comment with your predictions, and subscribe if you guys want to see more. I thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one.